So before understanding respiratory failure, let's understand the alveolar apparatus. There is the alveoli and interstitium, then there is blood vessel. In the alveoli, we mainly have the oxygen because in the environment mainly oxygen is present, then carbon dioxide amount is very negligible. So the same air we inspire, and in the alveoli mainly oxygen is present. So we measure only partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli. Then in the blood vessel, there is presence of oxygen as well as there is presence of carbon dioxide, which is nothing but all the metabolites from the cells the blood has carried away. So the oxygen is also present and the carbon dioxide is also present. So we measure partial pressure of arterial O2 and partial pressure of arterial CO2. And in the interstitium, we will measure the gradient, that is partial pressure of alveolar O2 minus the partial pressure of arterial O2. So this gradient is called as PA minus A O2. In the partial pressure of arterial O2, the normal level is at 60 mm of Hg, and partial pressure of CO2, the normal level is around 40 mm of Hg. Whenever the partial pressure of arterial O2 decreases below 60 mm of Hg, we call it as hypoxia. Whenever the partial pressure of arterial CO2, if it is more than 50 mm of Hg, we call it as hypercarbia. Now let's understand about type 1 respiratory failure. Type 1 respiratory failure is a diffusion defect. The membrane which is causing diffusion of oxygen and CO2 is defective. So we will understand this type 1 respiratory failure with the example of paper and two liquids. Now assume we are having a paper and water and a viscous liquid. Now whenever we pass the water through this paper, it will pass easily. And similarly, whenever we pass a viscous liquid through this paper, it will take some time to absorb and then it will pass through that paper. Similarly, here our oxygen is that viscous liquid and carbon dioxide is the water. So carbon dioxide, either the paper is thin or thick, it will pass easily. So as it is very less viscous. Similarly, our oxygen doesn't pass through that paper unless and until it is very porous paper. So similarly, whenever there is a diffusion defect, if at all there is a defect in the membrane, oxygen doesn't pass easily, but the carbon dioxide easily passes through that membrane. So in diffusion defects, the partial pressure of arterial O2 will be decreased because the oxygen from alveoli to arterial transport is decreased. Similarly, the partial pressure of arterial CO2 is normal because the carbon dioxide diffusion is normal. Now let us understand the examples of type 1 respiratory failure with the help of this diagram. Here the heart represents cardiogenic pulmonary edema and non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. The non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema, the only early cases comes under this type 1 respiratory failure. I will say the reason why. Similarly, the blood vessel represents the pulmonary embolism, and this alveolar apparatus, this part represents the obstructive lung diseases, which constitutes of emphysema, bronchial asthma, and bronchiectasis. Similarly, the alveoli represents the diffuse alveolar hemorrhage, and the pleura represents the pneumothorax.